think it's time we blow this scene. Get everybody in the stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
Hey. I hope everyone can hear me. Just as a little bit of point of house cleaning, Justin, you need to accept your speaker invite on the spaces because that's how we do all of the magic around here. I'm Matt Buxton, CCO of Warp, and we have a really fun show coming up for you today. If you are a RuneScape fan, if you are an aficionado, if you are loose in the hoose and you have had your armor trimmed, if you have ever been exploited or taken into the wilderness or bundled into a car in Cambridge by some nefarious people, you probably experienced the wonder that is RuneScape, that is Jagex. And I need you to accept that invite on Spaces versus Digital so that we can actually get your sound through. Is that cool? Cool. Anyway, I'll go through who else is up on stage. We have the glorious, fantorious Jason, Ovid, and we have our resident RuneScape guru, Nock. I'm going to start with you because I know time is limited for you. Thank you for carving out some time. I can't do an intro like Sam, but I'd love to hear all about yourself and what RuneScape means to you and what you want to find out.
Hey, happy to be here, guys. Wouldn't miss a show about RuneScape, given that I yap about it on a weekly basis for the last few years on Spaces. I'm leading gaming initiatives at Magic Eden. Most of that has to do with NFT launches, marketplace API, things of that nature. Prior to that, I worked in the traditional esports space as director of talent at Soar Gaming, where I built professional rosters for Valorant, Apex Legends, Fortnite, you name it. and then prior to that, I was doing go-to-market for the same types of games. RuneScape is actually on my monitor right now as we're chatting. It's a game that I have been playing on and off since I believe the first time I was introduced to it was 2001, maybe the end of 2001, right when RS Classic, or I guess now we call it Classic, but RS1 had been released. Played it on and off all the way up to 2012 when Evolution of Combat hit, and then picked the game up again in, I would assume, end of 2014, early 2015 when old school RuneScape was in full flight. So been playing it pretty much on and off for the last 25 years.
That is a massive history in that. And I believe we've got Justin sorted as well to tell us a little bit about your RuneScape journey and exactly on we go. Apparently, Justin, can you hear the spaces? Can you hear the spaces on your phone? You need to be listening to the audio from the spaces. There we go. Maybe it's good to have the space on your phone. But anyway, all right, we will move on to Jason, saying hi to everyone.
Hey everyone, how are we doing? Fantastic to be here on this new format that we got cooking.
Yeah, so Jason is one of the Warp Bros. We also have another Warp Bro up here, Ophid, co-hosting. Ophid, say hi to the crew.
Yeah, people just, I'm hearing an echo here back. So just very, very, very interested that, to be on my personal account today for this rather than behind the wall.
Oh, it's good to see you. Good to see you, friends. We have our secret silent partner in Warp. His voice is so iconic, he's not allowed to speak. That is how cool he is. But yeah, running all the shiznit down in this space. And then, if Justin, can you hear anything now? Can you give us a wave if that's working?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, we can.
Okay. I'm getting quite a lot of reverb on there.
No worries. I had to turn off the Bluetooth on my Mac and also murder the sound and just basically hope that my AirPods stayed connected. It's all good. It's all good. But yeah, it's also probably going to tell you off that your mic is unplugged because it doesn't like doing what we're doing. But Justin, if you can hear me, we can hear you fine. Take us through your journey of Jagex and RuneScape and tell us a little bit about it.
Okay.
Go.
Yeah, sure. I suppose you could. I think of me as a bit of an OG at Jagex, really. So I joined in about 2007, and I was at Jagex for about 12 years, something like that. So yeah, so I've been there and for a long time over the years and seen many things and done many things. I think like I originally joined my time at Jagex as a producer on the platform team. So I was building a lot of the fundamental features, like the billing system, like the actual clan system, the account system, ability to log in, create your account, integrating all the back-end platform functionality from the game to the platform.
And Justin was also in charge of that great feature that RuneScape had, where if you type your password into chat, then it styled it out. So the old classic scam that everyone used to play on each other. Type your password into chat, and then it would star out, and that would be you, Justin, responsible for that tech. I'm joking. That's just a classic sort of meme. But yeah, so I worked at Jagex from, I think it was 2008 to 2012. I remember I came in around about just before they turned off the wilderness for a bit and nearly killed everything. So yeah, it was some wacky times, some crazy things. And I'd really like to sort of take this one to Knock. Like, what's your burning question? What's the one thing you've always sort of wondered? Why the fuck did we do this?
You know what the question's going to be? It's about Evolution of Combat. So I had been playing. I'll give you some background here. So I'd been playing pretty heavily with a bunch of friends leading into Evolution of Combat. I think it hit the summer or the year that I graduated high school. So aging myself here, but I think that's when it hit. We had played all throughout that summer, playing into the fall, and Evolution of Combat came. And I remember a poll, and the poll was something like 40% of players said that they really liked the new combat system or they preferred it. But 60% of votes were some combination of I'm indifferent or I don't like it at all. So the one thing that like has literally always ate at me over the years is why move forward with the evolution of combat? Why move forward with that change, knowing that so many players were either indifferent or straight up unhappy with that? I mean, ultimately, it spurred old school RuneScape a few months later, and that's obviously become the bigger of the two titles. But that's one piece that just always confused me. It felt like there was such a good thing going. You introduce evolution of combat, and then you have like real player fragmentation for a short period of time. So yeah, super curious about that.
Yeah, Justin, what are your thoughts on evolution and combat?
Yeah, sorry, I just. Well, I'm a bit more embarrassed about it because I was project manager on the evolution of combat. So I was one of the producers leading the team that launched it. I mean, we thought we were building something pretty cool. You know, trying to modernize the game at the time and build really nice modern features and graphics. But what we learned post EFC was all about power to the players, and we didn't listen to the community. We were building something that we thought they'd like, but we didn't ask them if they would like it, and we didn't get them to play test it, these type of things first. So what we thought was we can play something amazing, but actually what happened was they did, it was fragmented. So 50 didn't like the feature. So we got ourselves into trouble with that project.
So there you have it, Mark. It was a but it was a well-intentioned one. There you go. Like that's straight from the horse's mouth. The guy who did that. Like
now you know who to blame after all these years.
So
he's a legend.
To be fair, I'll say this. I think one of the things that the entire Jagex team did really well pre or post EOC was how quickly old school RuneScape got spun up. I think it was like 3 months from the date of EOC's release to the first day that old school was sort of announced. And then the approach once old school was live was really this. I still talk about this all the time. I see IC and Jorge and Preds in the audience, and they'll have heard this about 1,000 times on some of the other shows that I do. But old school brought in this polling system, this idea that anytime we would want to present new content, we're going to go through it with this polling system, and we require the majority of player votes to make sure that that content would get input into the game. Now, it wasn't like full player control. Obviously, I would assume some of the people here on this panel were probably there at the time. But the way that you approached it was really interesting to me because you have 3 or 4 set pieces of content that you've created that you already understand will work within the game. And now you poll within players. What will work? What's exciting to you? What do you want to see? And I think that's part of what created this or really helped to like galvanize the community around old school. Obviously, old school continues to get more popular. I think it hit a peak concurrent players like a few months ago in December, which is insane. 12 years after release to hit your all-time high. But RS3
and
now
also
has,
to be an old version of the game. Like,
yeah,
that's
exactly. But I think the thing is like the decision there to like lean into community decision and community voice with old school sort of created this moment where now you have a lot of cross-pollination between those games. Like I have a near maxed RS3 account. I have a maxed old school account, and I'm almost 2K total on an old school Iron Man account right now. But I find myself having a lot of fun with both versions of the game now. Whereas, 10 years ago, I was like, fuck this, I'll never play RS3 again. I was upset with the decision that it went, but I think Jagex did an incredible job of like winning back community trust from both sides of that title. And now you've got 2 MMOs that are amongst like the top 5 most popular in the world, which is just ridiculous.
I mean, feel free to respond, Justin. But yeah, no, it's definitely one of the crazier things how fast that actually happened. I think that was probably down to Bill Mansell, wasn't it? The RS was he was already around at the time. The just recently retired CEO of Jagex, I think, was one of the ones pushing for old school. Justin, can you
Yeah.
hear me? Yep.
I mean, I remember back at the time, I think 2012, Mark Gerhard, the CEO at the time, came up to me and said, "We want to bring back, old school." Phil was the one pushing for it. You're right. Like he'd been listening to the community and he really wanted to do it. So we put together to bring back old school. At that point, we learned from the mistakes we've made.
That's pretty awesome. And then, like, how long did it take you? Like, how much tech stuff needed to be done to just sort of do that? Was it as simple as switching on a new server, or what was the process like?
Well, it's a great story actually. We first of all brought the engine team in and discussed a lot with them about how we could go about doing this. And the problem was that a lot of the platform features hadn't been updated. So now how do you get them to work reverse on the old game? And we spent a lot of time working that out and, building and testing and trying different R&D on it. And actually, we thought it was going to take about 6 months, something like that, to bring old school back. But actually, like, it's a great story. But there's a guy on my team at the time called Phil Gordon, who was an engine developer. You may remember. And he was amazing. And him and I were in the office one weekend, and he came up to me basically, with holding his laptop, and he held it up to me and showed me old school running on his laptop. So he basically got it working that weekend on his own. And what he did was he found a backup disk from 2006 in the server room.
He literally found the disk. Like, he found
Yeah.
a backup disk, like, in the server room. Like, he
Yeah.
was just digging around in them, like, and then he found. So this entire game came out of like one chance discovery of a holy grail disk that just didn't get chucked, I guess.
Yeah, it was amazing. We thought it was going to take time, but then this weekend when he blew the dust off the disk, booted it up, we then needed about a month to plug different parts into the game, but we fundamentally had it. We found it, and then we put it to the public vote, and it got the majority vote, so we relaunched it.
There you have it, from the horse's mouth.
It's insane because it's still so I'm like pretty deeply seated in the old school community, spent a lot of time on Reddit. Happy to I'll even just dox the account. I was there in 2006 when construction, I believe it was construction, would have been, when construction broke. So maybe a very brief story time, but in 2006 a new skill gets introduced. Construction, there was a race to max level, right? In RuneScape it's 99. And the first day that somebody hit 99 construction, they had what we called a house party. And in the house, players could go to this person's player-owned house through a portal. It was an instance event. And in the basement of the house was a boxing ring. And something broke in that boxing ring combat where everybody got booted from this player-owned instance. And a couple of players who happened to be in the ring at that time had the ability to sort of attack players on the overworld, and it created what today is like affectionately known as the Falador massacre. A player named Dirdel321 was running around Falador just killing players, and I remember being a kid seeing all this shit happen. I happened to just be walking north of Falador at the time that this was happening, and mods were like running through the town, like, log out, store your valuables, get off RuneScape, like some bad shit's going down. And I remember this being like the craziest thing that happened to me when I was like a young kid playing this game and learning about the lore and everything that sort of played off leading into that. The group Ironman account that I play is actually named I Was There 666, so June 6th, 2006. This happened on the craziest day numerically as well. It was literally the number of the devil, 666. So hilarious that this played out. But I think part of the reason why so many people have these really interesting ties to old school is because the version of the game that a lot of people play
I believe, was originally released in August of '06. It was actually a port or a backup from '07, which is why the subreddit is called '07scape. But it ties really deeply to like one of RuneScape's most iconic moments, which is a ton of fun. Another little fun fact: I actually know a couple of the mods that are on the team today, and one of the things that they say all the time is there's content in RuneScape in old school that they don't change or won't change or refuse to make updates to because they just don't know how it works, right? They have this piece of code from 15, 20 years ago that they didn't write, that they weren't even in the industry at the time that it was written. And they don't actually know how it works or what will break if they try to fuck around with it. So I always found that incredibly interesting. Part of the reason why the game is so compelling, at least to me, is that there's all this storied history, right? There's RS3, which a lot of people grew up playing, but old school is this own unique beast with a bunch of really interesting quirks around it. Yeah, it's as fun to talk about as it is to play.
It's definitely some crazy stuff there. I mean, I think the love that the players have for the game was one of the things that, like, the first time I ever got terrified of being doxxed. Was in relation to the game I was working on. It was going to be called Mechscape originally. I was a 3D artist there, like 2008 to 2012, and just generally one of the things that they started to literally go through my X account that I had back in the day and translate my tweets where I was just trying to learn Japanese with a few of my wife's friends and for alpha about the game. And then they would report like even the most mundane things I said about my job on their weird little threads. It was crazy. It was crazy times. And just the absolute terror of seeing your name and your X page on like the biggest like fan site for the game that you're making. Yeah, absolute craziness in this. And that whole thing about someone managing to basically break PvP and getting out massacring people, it can only happen in a place where someone made a pig that was too big and then everyone thought it was funny and just left it in the game. But yeah. Did you know about that code, Justin? Did you write that code? Was it Tony?
I didn't know. I didn't.
Oh, good. And there's
That one's
that was,
not my fault. I can hold up the hands to that one.
but yeah, no. And so Justin is not responsible for the code that cannot be touched, the code that cannot be named, the code that cannot be passed. I'll tell you one interesting thing is like when you actually sort of loaded up the game, there was a lot of all the models and things like that. When you actually put them into the game, you actually had to write a little script by hand because at the time you were really not allowed to do like macros and things like that. And weirdly enough, Jagex had one of the highest security of any games office I ever worked in. At one point, we added fingerprint scanners to the door, which I thought was quite funny. Yeah, we had all of the computers with air gaps and all of this kind of stuff. It was actually pretty hardcore. I mean, we took it very seriously. I remember there was, I think it was 220 player support guys, Justin, working in 8-hour shifts to cover all 24 hours.
Yes, that's right. We had about we actually had about 200, I think, when I first joined the company.
Yep.
Player support. And one of the things when I was running web systems was to automate a lot of the snapshots and automate a lot of the moderation. And we slowly did that over the like 5 years. And I think like eventually we ended up with about 30 people or something in player support towards the end. But yeah, we had an entire building player support and an entire building for the game dev team, didn't we?
Yeah, and a lot of the player support people were basically students and massive fans of the games. So there was a period when there were like 220 of them that some of the mods would go rogue and do weird things because they were kids. And I do remember because they were all like that, we went on a party at like a Jagex Jolly to the Namco Center, and by God, did they get sick. I remember on the bus back to Cambridge, it was like one guy chundered, another guy chundered, And we were like, don't cross the streams. And then it started rolling down the back of the bus, and the smell and the sound, there were screams. It was worse than the massacre, my friend. It was definitely worse. And then there was someone in the toilet and banging on it. Yeah, good times, man. Good times. But yeah, I've actually got some ancient historic Jagex lore that I'm going to go and find. But yeah, Mark, have you got any more sort of, since you've got to go relatively soon, have you got any sort of, what you would say aside from the massacre, what is your favorite part of RuneScape, and what is the thing that still pisses you off to this very day? And if you knew someone who had a very direct line to people who've made this shit, what would you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think like my biggest gripe with RuneScape today is probably twofold, and actually don't think that there's an answer for this. But the first is just the amount of dead content, and part of the reason for that is in a 25-year-old game, it's bound to happen where you really only visit I would say a majority of the map, like during quests, if you're building out a new account, or occasionally like go see an Easter egg or something of that nature. So unfortunately, RuneScape does have a lot of content that you really never ever do. The other thing that sort of has sucked over the year, but I think that this is more of like a symptom of player behavior than it is game design. Players pretty much only do the most efficient content. So if you're training a skill, you're training it the most efficient way possible. So for example, the wood cutting skill, one of the ways that most players will get XP in that skill today is by manipulating the tick system that RuneScape works on. You have an item in your inventory, you click a tree, you click that item, you click a tree. It effectively just allows you to, chop another log a little bit quicker than you would otherwise. And you're chopping a log that is incredibly useful for a different skill, but because you're working towards efficiency, you're just dropping that log. And there's like tons of different examples of sort of that happening. One thing that really pisses me off, as I mentioned, I've been playing an Iron Man account. So for anybody listening who's unfamiliar, Iron Man accounts can only interact with themselves. There's a new mode called Group Iron Man where you have up to 5 players, but basically you cannot interact with global markets. You can't interact with the player base at large. You can really only trade and swap items with the people within your group. That group is set in stone, and you're basically playing RuneScape with 5 people. You're trading items between each other. In an Iron Man mode, most accounts get locked behind a piece of content called the Corrupted Gauntlet. That gauntlet drops you what people in the game call BOFA. It's Bo Fahrenheit. It's basically like a must-have item. And for a lot of people, that is a somewhere between 100 and like 600 hour grind. When you get to that part of the game, you really have 2 options. It's sit there and hope RNGesus likes you today and gives you an item a little bit quicker than you otherwise would have gotten it, or try and skip it and then spend an ridiculous amount of time doing everything else, but significantly slower. And I think that that's one of the things that has really hurt the game from my perspective in terms of what new players are doing. You get to this BOFA stage, they call it the red prison. You have to spend really what ends up being like 2 to 3 plus months of real world time in that one location, hoping that you get this item. And if you don't, the game is just a miserable experience. To Jagex's,
do you know what the drop chance is on that item? And you just have to stay there until you get it.
So the drop chance is 1 in 400, which the way that statistics works is actually, you're probably on rate around your 600th kill. The interesting piece here is that it's an instance event where you have 7 minutes to gather gear. Then you have about a 3-minute boss fight. So 1 in 400 doesn't sound that bad. It's a lot lower than most other, drop rates of rare items in the game, but it is a minimum 10-minute kill. Takes the average player between 10 and 12 minutes. And beyond that, it's incredibly difficult. So most people end up, having 30 to 50 deaths before they get their first kill at the Corrupted Gauntlet. It's a really brutal piece of content. It's where a lot of people, I think, sort of pause and skip. But to Jagex's credit, they've recently added Royal Titans, which is actually what I'm doing right now as we're talking, that allows you to sort of capture a specific prayer that helps you to maybe alleviate the damage of not having this particular weapon. But that's the biggest piece. I think that it's too difficult to progress in this game for somebody who's maybe unfamiliar with mechanics without certain items. And if you're playing a fun game mode like this, you really get locked behind a couple sets of items. So I think that that's rather unfortunate.
So the difference between that particular item that you have to grind for a month and skipping the content and going for, let's just say, whatever's like next in that level is just it's too big. Is that why everyone sticks with it, or it's just over time the amount of cumulative speed that item adds is not worth skipping?
Yeah, so the only item better than Bofa from a range perspective is the Twisted Bow, which is the premier item from like Old School's current artist raid. So if you skip Bofa, everything just takes like 50 to 100% longer. So even if you have a 600-hour grind trying to get this item, over time, if you plan to do most of the end game bosses, it's actually the most efficient thing to do is sit there for 600 hours and hope that you get the item, because it helps expedite everything else that happens within the game. As I mentioned, like there have been some things that have been added over the last little while that are helping to alleviate maybe some of that grind. There's some viable alternatives that have sort of come up, but it really is like I would say a hard blocker for most people.
I mean, and if they introduce something with like just a couple of points less, you'd still go for the gauntlet, wouldn't you? You'd still go and kill it.
Oh yeah, too good. It's too good, and now it's personal, right? I've been there for about 350 hours. And now it's personal getting that thing.
Yeah, no, and that is the thing. That is like we've always dealt with in games like this. That sometimes friction is good. You might not think it, you might not love it, but if you just get all the answers all the way, and I think this is what modern games are very guilty of doing. With you watch some cutscenes, the puzzle is basically pick this one thing up, and it's highlighted with a glowing highlight where you need to put that thing. Like you're treated as if walking over 4 steps is going to be an mission. I think sometimes friction is good. Obviously, not on the extreme side, and that pisses you off. And I can tell, the bitterness of staring at the same boss fight again and again. I've seen many of those in my time, but yeah, it's definitely something that is a double-edged sword in a way, because it's also a massive achievement when you've done it, right? And once you've got that thing done, everyone's like, it's like you've graduated.
Yeah. So the second part of your question was, what's one thing that I love about the game? And it's that exactly, right? Especially when you're playing in Iron Man mode, so you can't buy gear from other players. Every piece of gear, every single upgrade that you get feels good, right? You feel like you're constantly progressing through the game. Every time you get a small little upgrade, you have a little more damage output. Maybe you have a little more defense for a particular boss, but it feels like you're working towards something. People on Gamified and Simplified often joke, it's like, you've been playing the game for 25 years. Why haven't you beaten it yet? I'm like, because like 4 people have. 100% completionist on RuneScape is a ridiculous thing to ask. For context, on this particular account, I have about 2,800 hours over the course of the last, let's call it 2 years. I'm just now approaching 2K total level, which is about halfway to the maximum level for stats in terms of total XP gained. And then not even remotely close to things like collection logs or special events or quest capes or capturing all the music. It is a game that you literally will always have something to do. So it feels great playing it because you can always progress, right? If you're mindlessly clicking for a little while, you get a little bit of XP. If you want to go hunting for a particular piece of gear, then you've got 300 mini games to play to sort of capture that particular piece of gear. So for somebody who's a completionist, which I absolutely am, it's literally like a never-ending stream of content. So even if you get stuck at a place and you're just too bad at the game to consistently kill that particular boss like I am, there's plenty of other things that you can be doing, which is sort of what I've been doing now for the last couple of months as I've taken a break from the prison.
And that is absolutely intense. And just as I would be loath to sort of point out, let's have a quick reset of the room. If you're enjoying what you hear, we will be doing this space on all sorts of cool games coming up with lots of people that we know. And so follow the speakers up here. They've given their time graciously to attend. I know that we've only got a few more minutes of knock before he has to run away. But thank you so much. Please also follow Warp so that you can learn a little bit more about us as well. We're a Web3 game publisher, essentially we are the third-party publisher of choice for about 30 games that we will be revealing soon. And before we squeeze the last of Nock's hatred out, and I actually get to ask him what percentage of his waking hours has he spent playing this game, as the percentage of his time alive, how much of it has been spent in this world, would be really fun to know. I just want to ask Justin, what do you think, through what you've done a lot of systems work and you worked on this, what would you say is your proudest achievement working at RuneScape? And what would you say you think would be something you would do differently?
Sorry, I've got a bit of a background noise. I have to wait for it to come back to me there. Let me.
Did you get it?
I think you asked what my proudest moment was that I worked on that game.
Yeah.
Well, I would say like it probably has to be bringing back old school. As one of the main things that I did when I was there. I'm quite proud of a lot of the work we did, like that you wouldn't really necessarily see when you're playing the game, but the whole kind of we built the platform and the game so that we could release it on mobile, and that was like something that was great for Jagex and also great for the growth strategy of the game. That we had to rewrite the whole engine in C++, and obviously the game was originally Java based, too slow for a mobile game now. So yeah, so I'd say like probably old school RuneScape, bringing that back, helping us supporting the launch of mobile RuneScape, both old school and RS3. Yeah, those were the milestones I was involved in during my time. But we also tried to get a lot of new titles off the ground. The company's obviously still trying to do that. We launched a lot of mobile games when back in 2010 when smartphones came out. Like we had a few #1 titles in the App Store, if you remember. Yeah, I'd say that was one of my fondest memories is when we got by a Chinese company, and I was based out in Shanghai for a certain time, like building new studios out there to build RuneScape IP related mobile games for the Chinese audience. That was pretty interesting project to work on in my time in the company. I think we had about 3-4 games over in China. But yeah.
Awesome. That's kind of cool. And yeah, so just want to say, like, Justin's not only a RuneScape OG, but he's also helping us out at Warp, and he's a legend of Web3 gaming, and he's got some really cool experience off in the space as well. Former COO of Decentraland, and yeah, just genuine absolute G, helping us with our grants programs and setting up a bunch of stuff for the Warp ecosystem. We're absolutely happy to have him as part of the team. And he's just one of the many OGs you'll be hearing about. I have lots of different stories about Jagex, not many of them fun game-related stories, most of them horrible people-related stories that are nonetheless funny anyway, like the time that one of the coders passed out. The developer passed out. He was lying on the floor. And the other developer, I shall name no names, was such an autist. He looked around and he looked back and he started coding again. And everyone's like screaming and everyone's going crazy. And the guy was like lying there with his he used to take these huge flagons of like Red Bull and just like drink them in the kitchen. And he passed out. And everyone was like, oh, holy shit. And the other guy was like, nope, and carried on. And at one point, They drew like a little office partition over there, and he didn't leave like everyone else. He stayed behind the partition with the guy and the people trying to help him out. That was to see if he was okay. That was funny moment number one. I also remember when a certain mod actually got into the game for a quote unquote Canadian girlfriend and gave her a party hat. I don't know anyone who knows this story. I don't know if it triggered a rollback, but it certainly triggered a lot of telling off. And that's one of the good ones. And the other one was there was a tank outside of the Jagex office called Bertha. And this one was funny. And this tank, it was beloved of the CEO. And it used to get involved in every single event that we ever went to. We go to London, and sure enough, the tank would be there, smashing through a wall or something with the CEO, like, yeah.
We drove it
And
to
one,
Tesco's once.
yeah, Tesco's. You drove it there. Well, he drove it to Tesco's. Amazing. He went shopping in the tank. But I remember I came in, I was quite early because, you could pick when your shift started. And the car park was just devastated. There was tank tracks everywhere. There was trees down. There was signs over. And there was it looked like someone had a tank party. And what happened? Someone had a tank party. And I think that is probably the story of how we actually got the Transformers IP. Or so it was alleged in the grapevines that there was a certain party with a certain Hasbro exec, and the tank was employed as the thing to push it over the edge. But yeah, that's some of my fun tales. I appreciate your time, Knock. If you had to jump, feel free to jump. And if there are any questions that people have while we have these people around and RuneScape fans, feel free to ask them. This is the first of our series. This is a little bit of a trial run. We are getting things up and running. We will be doing more different games. We're looking at bringing in some of the legends behind Candy Crush next time. So if you're a candy fanatic, if you've crushed those candies, if you like King Games or Match 3, we will be pushing towards that next time. And then we have some even bigger ones on the horizon, but we're going to have to generate a lot more love, a lot more hype for something of the caliber of World of Warcraft. Maybe we'll get some inside Scoobies on that. But if anyone wants any last inside Scoobies, let me know. Otherwise, we'll just have some final words on what makes gaming great. What you think makes RuneScape good.
I've got one, man.
Yeah, do it.
Paul,
do it.
Paul,
Yeah.
no, Paul unmuted. Paul unmuted literally just a second before me. I saw that microphone. Go ahead.
Cheers, man. I only had one question, and the one thing I'm listening to Justin and particularly listening to Knock there, is that RuneScape to me seemed like the perfect game for Web3. It was like a Web3 game back in its time where you could do all the trading and all the bits and pieces, and stuff actually had value. And it's like, I think that's why it's great is that we have a very large Jagex component to the Warp team, is that you can learn from how economies work and how trading works. And maybe I'm not really asking a question, maybe making a statement here, but there's definitely something there that we can bring the experience of Jagex in setting all this up into game economies and like what truly works. Because that's the one thing I'm personally I'm waiting for in Web3 games is a really good MMO. A really good MMO. It doesn't have to look significant like World of Warcraft does or Guild Wars does, but just something that's totally immersive.
I think this is one of the golden. Am I muted? I'm always muted when I'm doing stupid stuff.
No, you're not muted.
I'm not. Finally, I'm not muted. I always do this kind of thing. But I do think this is the goal. This is the golden goal. This is one of the first things that I did. Literally, the first picture I put on my pitch deck for my games company was a picture of RuneScape, because it's this game that taught so many people in Web3 how not to get scammed, or how to get scammed, or how to protect yourself online from people who would lure you into the wilderness and murder you for your stuff. It's this game that also inspired a ton of people to, just play forever and have their own economies and sell stuff and their accounts and gold. So I thought And I still do think that an RPG will be like an MMO is the kind of final and best use case for this. But what I don't believe is, I don't believe we as game developers should ever play a part in setting the prices for NFTs and items before we've got players in the game telling us how things should be run.
Yeah. I mean, well, number one, Paul just literally jumped on the exact topic that I wanted to bring up there. So he has covered that. But I wanted to follow that up with Justin. Like what lessons can be learned from RuneScape and applied in Web3? Like what could game developers learn from not just the game but the culture around the game, and bring that into Web3, or begin to apply some of these principles?
I mean, I think RuneScape's a perfect candidate for a Web3 game, just in terms of the economy, the rarity of items, the amount of digital assets. I used, when I was the CEO of Central, I used to work with a lot of creators and third-party developers who were all brought up on RuneScape. And they all used to say to me, "Oh my God, I wish RuneScape wasn't free," because they'd probably be incredibly wealthy after, if their assets were able to be controlled on a marketplace and stuff like. So, RuneScape's a perfect example of what a Web3 game should be, and yeah, we should think about what maybe making something similar to that, but
We should, and now Phil has left. So
yes.
we should get Phil. We should catch Phil.
Yeah.
We actually have Phil Manson.
I know there is some interest there to explore.
Oh yeah, Phil is not against Web3 by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. It's interesting because even when I'm at Web3 conferences, taking 49 or the rest of them, I've been to a lot of parties where I've met a lot of traders, and they all tell me that they learned that craft from playing RuneScape. The philosophy and the trading techniques that are involved with grand exchange. It's basically they tell me it's their reason for how to trade in crypto. So it's got a lot of synergy with RuneScape for sure.
And I think there's something that's also kind of special to me about the idea that people will play something that other people can't even get into, don't find fun, just look at the menus. They don't think it's cool enough. It doesn't have latest graphics. As Nock was saying, there's weirdly dead content, but people are still finding new ways to play this and play this and play this. And there's still a hardcore audience of this. And to me, this goes to say that there is a gamer for any kind of game in any kind of resolution, as long as it has the depth and something to keep them interested. Some people just don't find things fun. And some people would never find RuneScape fun, but some people, it is their life. It is absolutely one of the things that they get up and they look forward to, and they still look forward to doing this, even after all of that time. And they have parties and they do cool things and they massacre each other when they find out that they can break boxing. And you can see that, man, there's so much improvements happen to what it looks like versus the classic, but we don't have to go that far. We don't have to have AAA games. We don't have to have the absolute best tech in the world. We don't even have to have tech that runs all the time in all places of the game in the world. But what we do have to have is care and craft in this. And yeah, I just like to say, I've had some of the most fun times working at Jagex, and some of the people, as mad as we were, There was a lot of love put into that game. I think you'd agree, Justin.
Yeah. There certainly was, yeah. And it's not for everybody, is it? Like you said, it's quirky. But, you know, that Tolkien's lore and, you know, that Monty Python sense of humour. You know, there's something beautiful about Runescape. And there's a reason why it generated 2 billion in revenue today and 300 million unique players.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful story.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane to think that nearly the entirety of the population of the country, like America, has played a game, and it's always good. I remember like one of the developers that I worked with on my project, finally seeing many years later, after about 8 years working at Jagex, released his first content into the game and had a big old celebration about that. And I was one of the things that people forget in gaming and in Web3 gaming, and especially in Web3, where time is compressed and everything feels like 20 crypto years. It's only been a week. Things take time. Games take time. Industries take time to learn. I mean, we had an entirely different relationship with players, entirely, completely and utterly different when we were back in the day. Yeah, they were almost viewed adversarially in some places, depending on their studio culture. But things are changing, and we've seen content creators bringing the love of gaming closer to players, and players have become closer to the process of creation. And yeah, I'm just extremely happy to be part of this and seeing and being part of building the game that started all of these traders up and all this craziness. But yeah, we can definitely say that it's been a really fun space. Thank you so much for your time, Justin. And
You're welcome.
we're gonna play you guys out. It's been emotional. Look at my Jagex cup. Oh, there it is. Jagex, the OG cup.
Classic.
Classic. Bye.